Hello and welcome to PM Express. My name is Manan Safo. Now, this evening we are talking about the disbursement of the District Assembly Common Fund. You see, once upon a time in 1994, the whole nation came together, or Parliament, the representative came together and saw it fit that with all the taxes that the state collects, not less than 5% should go into a fund. Now that is a law, whether you like it or not, it's a law. And this money is supposed to go to districts according to a particular formula. Certain districts had more, certain districts had less, depending on how developed or underdeveloped the district was. This money is supposed to let the locals within the district know that. For us, it is very important that we have a clinic. So our money, our priority is a clinic. Others will say, no, we already have a clinic, so our money needs to go into a kindergarten because that's what we need most in this district. It's not a bad idea. But the question is, have the monies been collected? If yes, have the money been dispersed? By how much? And have the purposes that these monies been sent been served? Since 1994, we're in 2013. Now, Send Ghana Foundation recently did a report on local farmers. We had a discussion about it, and there was insight as to how monies and subsidies were not reaching the farmer directly. This time they've come up with a new report as to how these monies in the District Assembly Fund is being dispersed. We're going to have a good discussion about it. We asked the government to represent. They said yes, then they said no, then they said yes, then they said no, and eventually it was no. So if you don't see anybody in the show talking on the behalf of government, it's not because we wanted a one-sided show. No, it's because they did not turn up. Probably they are busy misappropriating some other funds somewhere. Who knows? But we will go have a fruitful discussion. Honorable Kweku Kwati might join us on the phone later to also share his views. He's an MPC. How he is received? Is he getting his money on time? And indeed, is he using his money for what it's intended and purposed to do? Welcome to the show, my brother George Osei Bimpe.
Thank you, Nana.
Very good. Now, first of all, I need you to educate me because, you know, just like the majority of the people out there, I hear this, you know, District Assembly Fund, District Assembly Common Fund, you just hear it and hear it and hear it, and then you know it's some money, but the history of it, how did it come about?
Okay, thank you very much, Nana. When we ushered ourselves into a constitutional dispensation, one of the key things that the Constitution of Ghana made it clear is the decentralization framework that we have had since, well, that we were then experimenting with, 1988, thereabout. And so the Constitution recognizes the important role of metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies as agent of development, for which reason it became important that a certain percentage of our total national revenue be set aside and per a formula proposed, by the administrator of the fund and, approved by Parliament. This is shared among all the MMDAs. This started in 1994. At that time, we were talking about 5% of total national revenue. That was taking care of about 110. Then in 2007, it came to 7.5. That was because we had increased the number of the MMDAs to 117. As we speak now, we have 216. The projection is that, or the proposal is that, from 2014, we will be, using 10% of national total national revenue, per the formula that I just referred to, distribute to all the MMDAs. And so the history is that citizens do have sketchy information about the District Assembly Common Fund. Somehow, we as a country or the various MMDAs have not done well to, educate citizens about what this is. So the contention has always been between, the citizens and the assemblies as to how the assemblies are using the District Assembly Common Fund, and assemblies also come out with all sort of reasons, and that is largely because the governance, if you like, the governance of the DACF has been rather weak in terms of citizens, being in the known on what the document, what do you call it, the policy is, the objectives, the guidelines, because the guidelines are only in the if you like, in the bosom of the technocrats who unfortunately manipulate it to the advantage, since citizens are not aware. And so the history has been that we have had a lot of agitations among citizens as to how their respective assemblies are using the District Assembly's Common Fund.
The other thing is, we have 6 metropolitan areas, we have 49 municipalities, and I think 161 districts. Yeah. So what would make one a metropolitan area, and what would make one a municipality? Well,
that's a question for, I think, the technocrats. Yeah, but right? There are certain basic, I think, if your population is around 100,000 or so, you are around, you qualify for municipal status. I may be wrong, and based I stand corrected. Right? Yeah, based on population and I think the land size, and I wouldn't want to go into that area because that's not my.
What is legally, approved to use that fund for? I mean, what is legal to use it for, and what is not?
The guidelines is quite clear on what and what. Basically, it is supposed to be used for, capital expenditure. Okay. Non-recurrent expenditure is completely ruled out. So under no circumstances are assemblies expected to use the common fund to, for example, pay workers, pay utility bills. No, they are only supposed to use it for the provision of social services. So if you like, development. As we understand it in Ghana. So it is not for any other thing but for capital investment. And so it becomes a bit surprising if you hear assemblies, saying that we use it to pay something that falls outside capital expenditure, but can best be described as a recurrent expenditure. So the law is, and the law is clear, and the guideline is quite clear on that.
The other thing I want you to explain to us is statutory deductions and non-statutory deductions. Okay. So let's start with statutory deductions.
Okay, so statutory deduction, basically the reserve fund and they are basically mandatory. And it is very important for the assembly. So we wouldn't have so much to complain about, except that over the years, the trend has been increasing, it has assumed an increasing trend in terms of how much is deducted. From 2005, you were talking about 10%, but it's now around 35% in 2012. So that is quite worrying. Why is it that we continue to see an increasing trend in that? The non-statutory deductions are basically, if you like, the guidelines is quite clear as to what that should be. For example, if the assembly needs say a tractor or a grader or something, and for some reasons they enter into some negotiation with a supplier, they can instruct or inform the Ministry of Local Government to pay the supplier. But there is a guideline that is supposed to be followed. The assembly is supposed to consult. I mean, there ought to be some consultation processes going, among the assembly itself, and then the assembly members for a resolution to be passed to approve the decision to, for example, purchase that. So once that is done, that qualifies as a non-statutory deduction. It is not mandatory. It is not by, if you like, by force.
But it's within agreement of the assembly.
Yes, the assembly has to agree to that. That is what the law, the guidelines says. But I think we shall come to whether the assembly, that happens or not.
I'll take a break here, and then when we come back, we'll delve further into the accountability and transparency of this fund. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome to the show. We are looking at the District Assembly Common Fund and how it is dispersed within districts, the transparency and the accountability of it. Indeed, the whole idea was good. It helps districts to develop in a way that they want, rather than it being dictated from Accra. But that's what I want to say, George. You know, one will say that it's a decentralized way of government where locals can now make their own decision as to how to develop. But is this truly the case?
Well, on paper, yes. But in reality, I mean, as a country, we should not flog ourselves so much in terms of the extent to which we have made some, progress with our decentralization process. I mean, in terms of political decentralization, yes, we have done well. The problem has been with fiscal decentralization. Though the assemblies, have they've been given the power to raise internally generated funds, to even enter into public-private partnership, to even raise revenue from what we call banks. Of course, we haven't heard so far any of them taking advantage of some of these things. But I think we can come back to that. But in terms of the subject matter, the reason why we are here, the management of this, what you call the District Assembly Common Fund, has rather been from the center, rather than allowing citizens or the assemblies themselves to take charge of their developmental agenda. We are seeing that somehow the powers that be are not ready to let go the management of the fund, and that is quite problematic, because if you have succeeded in political decentralization, you must as well be keen to see how you promote fiscal decentralization, because people cannot have power without the resources to implement the decisions that they make at the grassroots level. And so we have to be careful about that. And I think that when you ask us to go into this week, we will demonstrate why we think that we have rather centralize or re-centralize the management of resources, but be quick to say that political decentralization is what we stand for.
I don't know what your findings find, but I'm just assuming that if I am DCE and I'm supposed to receive 100 cedis and somehow I get 70 cedis, I'm not going to come and stand on the platform and say, well, they only brought me 70 cedis, because it's the same sort of, that's my bosses. Yeah,
you couldn't have put it better. And that is why those of us who are independent will have to take this issue, because the DCEs or the technocrats at the district level are crying, are lamenting that when some of these deductions go on, it affects or it derails their developmental effort. Nana, at beginning of each fiscal year, they plan, they budget in anticipation of certain amount that is supposed to come. And citizens are very much aware and conscious about what they are supposed to get as part of their, they want to take their national, part of their national cake. And so how do they meet the expectations and aspirations of citizens if, for example, the resources are managed from the center? And for them, it is quite, it's a difficult situation they find themselves in, but they are not able to hold, for example, the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development and the Administrator of the Common Fund accountable to that, because they are the hands that feed them. And they would you want to buy the hand that feed you? And this is a big problem to them. And as citizens, we complain about, poor state of our roads, water, clinics, and so on and so forth. The reason why we have not, been served adequately is because some of these practices are going on, and nobody is talking about it. Those who are supposed to complain are not making use of their own M&E system to feed back to their bosses, for them to know that whatever that they think that they are, thinking and planning for the assemblies are not the best, does not serve the best, the interests of the assemblies. And we have moved, as a country, we have moved from the old paradigm of top-down policy decision-making. And I think that is how we should go. So why do we then go back, or do we hold on to something because probably we find it very convenient to do so?
George, there was a chap, I don't know his name, from the District Common Fund who, said, oh, you should have come to me and, I gave you the report and I wanted you to come to me before you release it. I don't know what he would have said. But before I go there, I know there's supposed to be 2%, which should go towards people who live in with disability within every district. Yeah. Yet still, you drive in every district and you find people living with disability really struggling. Is it that the 2% doesn't reach them, or they are not aware of it to go and get it, or they're not getting it? Because it's something that really bothers me.
Okay, thank you very much. And this is taking me back to our first report that we did on the DACF in 2010, which we launched in 2011. In that particular report, what we looked into was the extent to which the assemblies were complying with the implementation guidelines. One of the things that came out was that many of the assemblies that we sampled had not opened the separate bank account for persons with disability. They did not have in place, the disability fund management committees.
Wow.
And yet they were accounting for the disbursement that they had made. So that was quite, puzzling. But we have made some progress since that report came out. And I must recommend the former minister, Honorable Ofosu. I think Ofosu. Yeah, I think at that time he issued a directive that all the assemblies must establish the the separate bank account and then the disability fund management committees to ensure the disbursement of this. So to that extent, we have made some progress. In actual fact, the figure has even gone up to 3%. The 3% now. So we have made some progress. There are some challenges because if you talk to persons with disability, for example, they are telling you that how can you say that this is our fund, but there's not a single one of us, representing us as a signatory. No, as a signatory to the account.
Okay.
So they can meet as a committee and vet requests. And at the end of the day, somebody said, I won't sign. Or somebody can go and sign for something that they have not approved. So that is, still problematic. But we have made progress in terms of now the assemblies adhering to the guidelines. What we need to do is not to just put money in the hands of our brothers and sisters who are described, unfortunately, as person with disability, just like that. I think that some of them have been found to be misusing the fund, and that is problematic. So somehow we need to see how, we build their capacity and, broaden the entrepreneurial horizon, if there is anything like that, for them to see that they can do something with it. Those who are going to school are making good use of it. Some of them are using to access the National Health Insurance scheme. So it is providing access to healthcare and so on and so forth. So I think that somehow we need to work to deepen that. So we have made progress in that respect, except that more need to be done, and we need to also strengthen the governance structure around the use of persons with disability share of the fund.
Well, I mean, if you have a friend or relative living with a disability within any district, ask them to go to the district assembly and inquire to see what sort of help they can get, either through education or some small capital to set up a business or something. It's your entitlement, you've earned it, and make use of it. The other thing, because I would have said, you did the report and it was biased and everything, but here we are, the Auditor General's report having cited instances where monies paid to individuals, companies and agencies for provision of services and supplies to various assemblies have not been executed or properly accounted for. I mean, this, you probably even didn't need to do your report. Just go and get the book and everything is there.
Yeah.
So what are the managers of the fund saying to this?
Okay, Nana, I will come to that, but just to provide some information on our brothers and sisters who living with disability.
Yeah.
You said they can go to that, but it is important that they join the existing groups, because it has been very challenging for the assemblies to deal with them on individual basis. So it is important that they join the existing group so that they can go in unison and find a group and join and make a case for yourself. I mean, whether you want to go to school, self-care, and so on and so forth. Now, what else can they say about? I'm coming back to your question. Yeah. What else can they say? Because what we have, experience have taught us that sometimes when you make some of these studies and you do your analysis and you're able to come to some conclusions, then officials will ask you, where is the evidence? So we decided this time around to use government's own document, the Auditor General's report, to build an empirical evidence that nobody can dispute. So to the best of my knowledge, nobody has disputed that. And in natural fact, we have had some admissions from officialdom that some of these things that we are talking about are true reflections, except that, of course, the usual mantra that we are doing something about it. But one thing that we ascend, we want to say is that we are not going to leave this at this point. We are going to follow through, at least in the next 3 years ahead of us, to make sure that we do not persistently commit some of these things. Because if you look at the report, since 2005, some assemblies have been so consistent in, disregarding the regulations that is governing the use of the DACF. So why do we continue to see almost the same assemblies committing the same blunders? Yeah, the blunders all the time. What have we done to deter them from doing that?
I will come to that, but another thing which puzzles me is that the general level of MMDA compliances with financial management standard is low, leading to several irregularities. Cash irregularities are rampant, followed by procurement and contract irregularities, with tax irregularities being the least. It should be noted, however, that some of these irregularities are caused by administrative or procedural blunders, not only through corrupt practices. So are we saying that just people there are not even aware of the procedures, and not necessarily they are corrupt, but just not aware of their procedure?
Well, to say aware, to say not being aware would be to say that they have the capacity, except that they don't have the information. I think that our experience on the ground has shown that the capacity level of many of the assemblies have been quite abysmal, very low. Many of the assemblies do not have engineers. Many do not have the people with the financial acumen to manage their resources. And so, for example, cash, petty cash management, that is a problem. Many do not have internal audit unit. Some of these problems could have been averted, for example, if they had internal audit unit, which on regular basis would prompt them if some irregularities were being perpetrated. But many of them do not have it. So, the capacity or the manpower at the many of the assemblies, is quite low. Sometimes some of you in the media even make fun of some of the DCEs, especially when they are articulating the concerns of their citizens. So if at the helm of affairs, somebody is of that low, at that low level in terms of capacity, what would you expect? If that person has to, for example, take a part in a recruitment process. So it's a problem. But I think that one of the things that I heard today, which I am a bit gladdened about from the Honorable Minister, Deputy Minister of Local Government, is that this year, for example, they have recruited quite a lot of people who have at least their academic qualification to make sure that some of these things do not happen. And we are very keen in following that to make sure to see that there has actually been a change. Other than that, people may not genuinely set out to be corrupt, but the system and their own inadequacies will make them look as if they are corrupt. And we need to put that into perspective.
But if the government was represented here, a question I would want to find out from them is that, since 1994, and in 2013, you say, I'm now putting competent people in charge of money. You can't answer that, but I'm sure the viewers and the taxpayer, to pay money since 1994 and 2013, they tell you that, I'm now going to find somebody who is competent to keep the books and probably even find an engineer for a district. I think it's an embarrassment on all of us.
Well, I will not attempt to answer it for them, but one thing that we also hear is that oftentimes people refuse postings to the very impoverished district. And so much as we can sympathize, if you like, even empathize with officialdom. But that notwithstanding, we have come a long way. And so if we want to ensure effective decentralization, implementation of decentralization, we want to tackle all aspects of it, rather than to reduce it to only political election, where people gather every 4 years and go and elect assembly members and everybody goes to sleep.
Okay, we're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to look at the districts that are doing well consistently and the districts that are failing consistently. And then after that, we have to look at what we should put in place, policy recommendations to make sure that the monies do exactly what they were meant to do. Stay tuned. Hello, we are discussing, the disbursement of the District Assembly Common Fund. With me talking about the issue is George Osei Bimpa, who's a country director for Send Ghana, an NGO who look into government policies and see how these monies, basically how policies are looked into and formulated and everything. Now, a number of MMDAs cited for irregularities was higher in the northern region and than the other three regions sampled. It was followed by the Upper West, the Upper East, and then Greater Accra. Now, I was very concerned about the northern regions because once upon a time when this SADA issue came and there was 15 million cedis that had gone to the north for this confirmed business, I was very vocal that the stakeholders in the north should make sure that if indeed there's 15 million cedis coming towards the north for SADA to bridge the north-south divide, make sure that every penny is benefiting the north and the northerners. Make sure that you benefit. And so if there's a findings here, again saying that the District Assembly Common Fund going to the north is not going directly to what it's supposed to be, then maybe, as the accounts will say, you need to stand up as Northerners, the stakeholders, and make sure that every penny that comes to you goes down to the people. So, George, I think that's my personal opinion. That I feel that the stakeholders of the North should make sure that every penny coming to them, they are earning it and not misappropriating.
I totally agree with you, but there is a fundamental problem that is leading to this finding. We have noted elsewhere that citizens' knowledge on the DACF is very much limited. Mm-hmm. And so you want to find out, for example, the education level of the general population in the communities that we are talking about. And so you see, that it doesn't surprise me that Greater Accra is, the last, on the list, because we have a lot of enlightened people here who can also sometimes take the initiative to ask the critical questions of the officials at their assemblies. And for me, the assemblies themselves see this as an advantage, or whoever is benefiting from that.
I'll let you continue, but are we doing enough education in order to do programs like this in Dagbani, Ghana, Ewe, so that it reaches the people?
And that is where I'm coming to, Nana, that the assemblies themselves find it, find it convenient, because it means that citizens do not have the information with which to demand transparent and accountable governance regarding the use of the DACF. The unfortunate thing is that the assemblies will tell you we have pasted information on the notice board. I mean, we are talking, for example, let me use my village or my hometown, Kontanasi. This has over about 100 communities under it. I'm not so sure if that's correct, but let's assume that it's about 50. And you just go and put a notice board in the district capital. And you expect everybody to come and read what is on the notice board, assuming that even everybody can read and understand. Is that the way to disseminate information? So that some of themselves have not been proactive in disseminating information because, of course, it serves their interest. They just put it on notice board, and that is it. Or we have put it on notice board. Everybody goes to sleep. So if they are serious, that is where, for example, the use of Dabani, Dagati, or I don't know, all the languages can be used. At least we have the community radio stations in these areas. How are the assemblies using it? Some of us and civil society activists, we have taken upon ourselves and sent Ghana. That is what we have been doing, to work with the community radio stations
let me
propagate.
I have on the line Kweku Kwarteng, who's Honorable Member of Parliament to Obuasi, and also Member of Parliament of the Finance Select Committee. Kweku, welcome to the show.
Thank you, and good evening to your listeners.
Good evening to you too. I mean, we're looking at the disbursement of the District Assembly Common Fund. That, the idea itself is very, very good. It helps, to develop rural areas rather than this urbanization going on. However, the delay in the money reaching the districts, the misappropriations, the irregular, deductions from it. In your area, maybe you can't talk in your area, but being within Parliament, what are some of the general concerns that you have?
Well, the general concerns I have is that we are not building capacity at the local level. I listened to a bit of what your panelists in the studio said, and I agree with them only to some extent. It is not as though there is capacity and somehow information is being withheld from people at the grassroots. There's just not a capacity for several reasons. One, the money we send to the local authorities woefully inadequate, very woefully inadequate. And so people would aggregate around where resources are. The reason everybody is in Accra is that even if we take the distribution of the District Assembly Common Fund, 7.5% goes to the District Assemblies. 92.5% is retained at the center. Now, it is this 7.5% that will be shared across the 200, I think it's 180.
No, I think it's 216 now, isn't it?
Now 216.
216 now.
216 local assemblies that we have. So why would people concentrate their attention on that kind of resource when you can come here and look at what government does? And the evidence is that when we read a national budget, the criticism by the opposition and other stakeholders, compare that with what happens when they read the budget at the District Assembly. Nobody takes interest. The monies, for me, are small, but also because capacity there has not been built. Now, in order that I will not take too much of your time, I'll just put forward our two observations that reflect our own unwillingness to develop capacity at the local level. One, if government is taking 92.5% and the district assemblies are taking 7.5%, the district assembly common law says, common fund law says that the money that goes there should be distributed if you like, equitably per a formula across the district assembly. Apart from the delays, which has worsened in recent years, precisely, especially after 2012, because, as we all know, the national coffers have dried up. Apart from these delays, which keeps worsening, there's also the point about people sitting at the center and telling the assemblies what they need. So that government is at the center is not satisfied with the 92.5%. They also say that the little money that is going to the assemblies, we will procure for you. And I know, for instance, in Obuasi municipality in 2011, the chief executive had a vehicle that was just 2 years old, a Nissan Patrol. And then in 2011, there was a government policy that every assembly must have a Nissan Patrol vehicle. So they got another one. If the choice was left to them, they would not probably have made that decision. That's the first point. Sitting at the center and dictating for the district assemblies what they should buy, whether or not they need that. Two, and this is recent. You see, government is now not doing just that. The center is not just procuring for the district assemblies. Government is now saying that the 92.5% I get is inadequate. So the 7.5%, government goes in there and takes a part of that money to finance what government has been calling priority program. It happened in 2012, it is going to happen in 2013. It was raised in Parliament. We didn't get any respectfully or any credible response, and therefore we are displaying a lack of belief in our own decentralization strategies. What I would call for is that we must ask ourselves whether we want decentralization or we don't. If we want it, let's be serious about it. But we cannot pretend that we want a decentralization and then we pass back Nicodemously and try to deny the local levels money. I think that is problematic. To conclude, I would put forward the suggestion that we should elect district chief executives. Unless we tackle this problem comprehensively and let people who have political interest to pay attention to the conduct of the elected district chief executives and let more resources go, 7.5%, even if all was going to the local government, I think is inadequate. I think we should do these things in order that we will build the right space within the local government, at the local government level. Then we will have the kind of things your panelists want us to have. People will take more interest, the environment will be cleaner, and then we can make some strides with our decentralization strategies. Now, we're failing. We are retrogressing, actually.
I just want to find out, what would be termed as a priority project? Because I think every district has their own priority project.
Precisely. It is not just illegal, it is dishonest. For government to say that the 7.5% that the law says I should share by a certain formula across the local government, I am going into it. And this year, government went into it to the extent of about 330 million Ghana cedis. That is how deep government dipped its hands into it for what is called priority projects. And what would these projects be? There will be projects maybe in Accra, projects in some regions. But the spirit of the act says that the money that goes into the District Assembly Common Fund, share it per a certain formula, a function of your population and other variables, so that it goes to the district. They develop capacity. People say, oh, at the district, they don't have capacity. Unless we resource them, they waste the money, they make mistakes, they learn from their mistakes, they will never build capacity. And so this argument about the capacity is weak, so you continue to make it weaker and weaker, is leading us nowhere. And that is why I think your panelists, together with those who especially are listening to me, should begin to exert pressure on government. That not only should you increase the 7.5%, dipping your hands into a District Assembly Common Fund for purposes that run completely contrary to the law is criminal and must stop immediately.
I see. Well, thank you very much, for shedding that light on there. But as you know, amazing priority projects. I mean, in your findings, George, did you see any priority project?
He's talking about this year. We look up to 2012. So I am incompetent to comment on that.
I don't know. Do I still have Kweku on there? Is he gone? I think I've lost him there. I think I lost, because I just want to find out that, if I lived in an area and I needed a school, and then, the next door they were building, maybe...
Granted, that is true. And I say this advisedly, that granted that what Honorable is saying is true. It is not different from the deductions that we have, the non-statutory deductions that we have already talked about. Because, in some of the districts, as much as 90% of what they were supposed to receive were deducted at source, at the center. And so if a poor district is now left with only 10%, but Honorable says something that I want to respectfully disagree with him, to say that the money is small. It is not. Because to majority of the assemblies, it constitutes an average of between 54 to 73% of their total development fund. So this cannot be said to be small. It is only small to the big boys or girls that are able to mobilize enough internally generated resources. Because, for example, they have industries located within their areas of jurisdiction. They have mining companies there. But there are majority of them, probably about 80% of them, that do not have
that luxury,
that resource. So it is an important amount of development resources that we shouldn't be saying that it constitutes small. And maybe just to say something, he kept on saying 90-something%. I think that what he wanted to say is the total national revenue, and that must be put into perspective. Otherwise, people can always confuse, can always confuse things. But essentially, it is quite worrying that increasingly we are seeing a trend that implies that central government is not, and this is not
you can't let
only,
go.
and I don't want us to do the politics with it, because
no.
From 2005, we are talking about 2005. In actual fact, if you want to go back to the previous auditors, it will not be different from what we are seeing today. So we should be flogging ourselves as a country and as a people who always would want to do things to favor us because we find ourselves in a particular position. And that is quite worrisome, because at the end of the day, it is the community people. And does it surprise you to see that we are importing liabilities into the cities, because we are not taking care of the rural areas in a way that they can also enjoy the beautiful things that those of you in Accra can, are enjoying. And I think that we need to take some of these things seriously and begin to see how we can deepen fiscal decentralization. The emphasis should be on deepening fiscal decentralization. And if some alleged criminal acts are being this, I think that some people can take some of this issue up. And I can assure Honorable that just like we worked with them when they were in government, we will work with this government to make sure that the right thing is done. And hopefully we will get the support. It shouldn't be, I want us to move away from the politics, because Definitely. It doesn't help this country.
No. I mean, the fund has been since 94, so it's a cross-board.
We should be talking about how my community can get the water. That's the most important thing, rather than the
Before Kweku came on, we were just looking at mismanagement in the north, and very worrying trend, because if any district or if any area would need development, it's always the north. And we always complain about Kayaye coming, and the main excuse is that there isn't enough going on up north. And then you have SADA and everything. So, I mean, the last year, one of the places where you want to hear good news that as for that place, the fund is working to a T and everything, is the north.
Now, just before you took Honorable's call, I had mentioned the capacity in terms of the citizens' access to information, their knowledge level, to even build a critical mass of activists who would be asking the critical questions. That is one side. I talked about the administrative flaws that we can attribute to the weak capacity of the personnel. Unfortunately, a lot of people, and I'm not speaking for the ministry, but a lot of people are refusing appointment. People who can manage these funds so well are often refusing appointment there. And so that is one side. But I think that I agree with your call that our brothers and sisters from the northern,
part of Ghana
should take this issue up seriously and demand from their respective duty bearers efficient use of this resource, because it is through this that they can get the development that we want. If we do not do that, and so it should not be, and here again, probably we should start a crusade to stop the politicking in this country. Because somebody who has the knowledge, who has to take on duty bearers, may not do it because he will be tagged as belonging to a party side. A or B. And if another person does it, it is because so I mean it is just annoying and very disappointing that issues that need to be divorced from politicking, people do it. And often the politicians themselves do it because it is in their advantage. They divide and rule tactics, and that is what is going on. We are not talking about that one, but I'm very passionate about that, especially when you look at the generation that would want to call themselves this party or that party other than Ghanaians.
I keep saying that there's no country for Ghanaians. There is no country for Ghanaians. But policy recommendations that you guys have come up with, policy recommendations to, at least if we follow it, to minimize some of these things. And, you know, so there's an urgent need to minimize the level of deductions made from the District Accommodation Fund, from the Ministry of Local Government, you know, to minimize the deductions so that obviously more money can go. But the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, if they are deducting the money, are they not using it for the same thing that the District Accommodation Fund was going to use it for?
Then I'll ask the question, why did we decentralize in the first place? If they wanted to think for them, why did they decentralize in the first place? So it is good. I mean, they may have good intention, and we are not saying that is bad. And that is why there is the need for even a resolution, you know, follow the procedure. That's fine. Because if we follow the procedure, the best assumption we can make is that the decision is reflecting the ultimate interest and the needs of the people. And so, but if you do not do it and you sit in Accra and decide for them, that is where we do have the problem. In any case, why do we even have to talk about that in the first place? Especially if we want to build the capacity of the assemblies to do that. Give them the right people, the right capacity, the right experiences for them to, I mean, to help the citizens to make the right choices in terms of how they want to use the money.
And then I hear 2 transactions done on behalf of MMDAs by DEF. I mean, I think it's something similar to what you say, that you know, we sit somewhere and decide that you need this, you know. And I know they bought tractors for all the districts once upon a time. So then, if you lived in, you know, Ablekuma South or something, what do you do with the tractor?
Nana, even those in the rural districts, the question is, are people, the last time we were talking about agriculture, are the farmers getting access to it? You see, on paper, people can justify some of this expenditure to say that, oh, the assemblies need it. But Nana, we probably will have to travel around the country. And we have been to some of these districts. You go and see that they have actually been using this tractor, you know, they've been using it to fetch water, to feed those people who are doing construction and those things. Can't we leave this thing to other people to do, private sector to do, and make sure that we use a tractor to support, for example, agriculture, women in farming, and so on and so forth. So the intention might not be bad, but because the assembly themselves have not sat through to think about how they will use it, when it is imposed on them, they are surprised. And so they just do whatever they want to do with it. Some of the graders, I tell you, have been parked in front of, you know, on the premises of many of the assemblies. They don't even want to raise money, or they can't raise money to
buy the diesel to go and
work. To repair it. It might be one of the stories, I will not mention one of the assemblies. They require something less than 22,000 to repair it, and that thing sat there for about 1 year.
On the news, they said they had 4 levels of regulations to make sure that, you know, the 4 levels of monitoring system. You know, the assembly had their own monitoring system, those disbursing the money had their monitoring system, you know, and all these monitoring systems, 4 of them. So if 4 monitoring systems and we still end up with this abysmal dispensation and use of the money, well, how many more monitoring systems are we going to put in place to check it?
Now we don't need to put in place any monitoring system again. We have set, you know, we have in place all the bureaucratic structures that is supposed to ensure effective use of the fund. The problem is that the structures are weak, are ineffective, inefficient. And if we do not, because it takes you say institutions are not anything than human beings, a set of human beings who are doing things, you know, in unison. So if you have the structures in place, why is it that the Auditor General is indicting many of the assemblies? So whoever is saying that should be quick to make reference to the Auditor General's report to say, so what? And the question that you want to ask, and so what? There are 4 levels, and so what?
I'm going to go into punishment, but before I go, you know, one of the things that the district, you know, Assembly Common Fund people were worried about is that they gave you all the statistics and everything, but you never came back to them to tell them what your findings were. The next thing they knew, it had been published, and that they hadn't even read it fully anyway.
Well,
even though the minister says, well, I agree with everything you said.
Yeah.
It was a very contradictory, because one agreed and one did not. But is there any particular reason why you never went back to them to say, look, we found this, found out that you're misappropriating the money, or not running it properly?
Yeah, they are our partners. The gentleman who came there probably was not there when some of these things happened, or he was not the person who was supposed to be there. He actually represented his boss, and I think that if his boss was there, probably something different would have been said. They are partners, and so we would want to look forward into the future to see how we can strengthen that partnership. But actually, that would have been very unprofessional on our part to do that. But I think that we have discussed that. I mean, information asymmetry can sometimes lead to some of these utterances, and I would think that since the minister is the superior, we will want to go by what the minister said. Yeah.
The fifth recommendation you make, which is probably, in my case, probably the ultimate, is punitive measures.
Yeah.
Punishing somebody who deliberately misuses the money.
Yeah.
How do we arrive at that as a state, as a people? Are you going to do another research to ginger somebody so we punish people? Because
I think the problem is political and not political. And I will explain. We are always quick to look at politicians to punish them. But we do not want to look at the civil servant who are giving them ill advices and so on and so forth. I think somehow we need to be serious to make people responsible for their actions. If you are a civil servant or now a local government service worker or whatever they call it, and you are found to have misconducted yourself, somehow we need to show good examples. The reason why we continue to do this with impunity is that we haven't shown that if you do it, you will find yourself in the wrong side of the world. And I think that is where the problem. And if we would want to move from, because a politician, how many are they? If you go to the district assembly, you want to probably talk about only one clearly identified politician. That is the DCE. Apart from that, everybody is supposed to be non-partisan.
Yeah.
And so why do they? And it is not, for example, if petty cash management or cash irregularities, and it isn't the DCE who does the day-to-day activity. No. Certainly, those people who are not doing the right thing, we need to find them and punish them. And you don't need to bring them to Accra. The circuit courts are there. The magistrate courts are there, right there at the assembly. Here again, capacity. How do you build the capacity, for example, of the district BNI, the district police, for them to investigate and put forward a strong prosecutorial fight, if I may put it that way, so that we can put these people and punish them? It seems that there's a disconnect. There's a disconnect between how we do some of this, because it seems, that's the assembly and that's the police. I think that somehow we need to do, if you like, decentralize the administration of justice as well, and make sure that people are held accountable right at the grassroots to serve good examples for others.
George Osei Bimpe, Country Director for Send Ghana, and we're discussing the findings which they made into District Assembly Common Fund, how is dispersed, how is spent, and all the misappropriation there is going on to the fund. And I think it is up to you and I and everybody, since we are the direct stakeholders of this money, to make sure that whatever it is coming in, and what's supposed to be done is supposed to be done. Punitive measures, they've come up with a few recommendations which I think once we as a nation adhere to, it would work. George, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for watching. My name is Nana Sakwa, and tomorrow we're back here to do it all over again.